Hey everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how I made one of these Harry Potter inspired amigurumi scarves. For this Gryffindor scarf, I used this red heart red yarn. I also used this golden yellow for the Gryffindor scarf. For the Slytherin scarf, I used this Kelly green, and I also used this gray heather. And I've made two different Ravenclaw scarves. For the first one, I used this blue yarn from Red Heart, and I used this brown yarn from Karen Simply Soft. It's called Nutmeg. And I also made this other one that was using the same blue, but also using the gray heather, the same one that I used for this Slytherin scarf. And the last scarf that I made is the Hufflepuff ones. I used yellow and black, both from Red Heart Super Saver. Now you can use any color that you want for your scarf. You can use any two colors, or you could even just use one color if you want. Some other things that you're going to need for this tutorial are a crochet hook. I'm using a size E, a pair of scissors to cut off your yarn, and a needle to sew in your ends. So I'm going to be using my red and my yellow yarn to do my little scarf. And I'm going to start with my yellow yarn. Okay, so I'm going to start with a slip knot. And then I'm going to insert my hook. And I'm going to chain 2. Okay, now I have 3 chains of yellow. I'm going to switch colors and chain 3 more in red. So I'm going to take my red yarn and pull up a loop. And now before I chain, I'm going to pull up my yellow part so that I can string it along and use it for the next 3 chains after I'm done with my red part. So I'm going to pull up my loop around the yellow yarn. So I'm going to go around the yellow yarn and pull up my loop, and then I'm going to do a chain. And then I'm going to go around to the other side and chain there. And as you can see, the back of the chain, in the back of the chain, I've hidden my 2 tails. So I'm going to chain another one. This time I'm going to chain in yellow. So I'm going to pick up my yellow tail that I've been trailing through, and I'm going to chain 1. And now once again, I'm going to chain up, but I'm going to hide these tails in. So I'm going to go to the other side of where my yellow yarn is trailing, and I'm going to pull up a loop on the other side of the red, and I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to go to the opposite side and chain 1 more, so that I can pull up my loop around my tails and hide them as I go. So now I have 3 more chains in yellow. And as you can see, we're doing 3 chains of each color and then switching colors again. So I'm going to switch colors back to red. So I'm going to pull up a chain of red and then go around that yellow yarn once again and hide my tail, and then I'm going to chain. And then one more time I'm going to go around to the other side of the tail and chain 1 more. So now I have 3 more chains of red, so I'm going to switch colors to yellow. And then once again around the other side of the red I'm going to chain. Then around the other side I'm going to chain again. And I'm going to continue doing this and switching colors every 3 chains until my chain is as long as I want it to be. So I'm going to switch colors to red again. Switch colors back to yellow. And back to red. And back to yellow. And I'm going to continue until I get the length that I want. So as you can see, I have finished with my chain. I've done 17 color changes so that I have 17 blocks of color. And now I'm going to do my next row. So I'm going to chain up, and that's going to count as my first stitch. And now I'm going to do a half double crochet into the next chain of my row. So I'm going to yarn over, and then I'm going to go into that second stitch, into that loop, pull up a loop, and half double crochet. And then I'm going to half double crochet into the next chain, but I'm going to leave that stitch open, and then I'm going to switch colors to my red yarn. I'm going to yarn over, go into that next stitch, the red stitch, pull up a loop, half double crochet, yarn over, next stitch, pull through all three, and now I'm going to switch colors again on the next stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, go into that last stitch, pull up a loop, and then I'm going to switch colors to yellow and finish that stitch with a yellow thread. And now as you can see, I have 2 blocks of color, and I'm going to continue half double crocheting and switching colors every time that I get to the last stitch of my block of that color. So here is my last stitch of this block of color, so I'm going to switch colors again to red. So now I'm going to do my next block. And now the last stitch, I'm going to leave that open and switch colors back to yellow. And I'm going to continue doing that until I get all the way to the end. And I'm going to switch colors for every block. Okay, I'm on the last stitch of my row. So as you can see, there are now a bunch of blocks of color going all the way to the end. Now if you wanted to make your piece a little bit wider, then you could just chain up, turn the work around, and then do the same thing into this side of the work and half double crochet into each stitch, and then once you get to the end of the block of color, then you would switch colors back to red and so on. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave mine at this thickness. So to end my row, I'm just going to chain 1 and cut off my yarn. And next I'm going to sew in all of these ends. I'm also going to cut off my red strand. And now I'm going to sew in these 3 ends. So now as you can see, I have finished sewing in all of the ends, and I've cut these 8 strips of yarn. Each one is 2.5 inches long, and I'm going to use these strips for fringe. Now depending on how big you want your fringe to be and how big you made your scarf, you might want to cut your fringe to be a little bit longer than that, but since my scarf is going to be a really thin small one. That's how many I've cut. And you also might want to cut more than 8 if you're going to be making a wider scarf. So I've inserted my hook into one side on the corner of one of the yellow blocks at the end. So now I'm going to pull a yellow thread through and use it as the fringe. I'm going to pull up a loop and I'm going to make sure that the 2 ends are even at the bottom. And then I'm going to pull this loop through that corner. And then I'm going to pull those 2 tail ends through that loop. And I'm going to tighten it. And that's going to be my first fringe. So I'm going to go into the space right next to that. Okay, so I went in through the other side, and I went into the space next to that, and now I'm going to use one of my red threads as the fringe. So I'm going to line up those 2 pieces at the bottom. I'm going to pull up a loop, and then I'm going to pull my tail ends through that loop. Then I'm going to tighten my fringe, and I'm going to insert my hook into the next space. So here I'm going to do another yellow fringe. I'm going to line up those 2 ends. Going to pull up a loop, and then I'm going to pull those 2 tail ends through that loop. Okay, and now I'm going to do my last fringe for this side. I'm going to pull up a loop through the opposite corner from where I started, and I'm going to use a red thread this time. Then I'm going to pull my tails through my loop. Okay. And now I have the fringe on one side, and you could leave it like this, or you could take your yarn needle and then just brush through these fringes so that they're all individual strands. Okay, now I have finished brushing out all of my fringe, so I'm going to trim it. Now you don't have to do this if you like the length that your fringe is at when you first add it on. So I'm just going to trim the tops of all of these pieces of fringe so that they're about roughly the same size. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with my 4 remaining threads. And now, as you can see, I've finished making this scarf, and I've finished trimming and fringing the ends. And as you can see, I've finished a whole bunch of sets of scarves here. And now, as you can see, you can put this scarf onto an amigurumi if you want to do that. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, then give this video a thumbs up, and if you have any questions or comments, then you can leave them down in the comment box below, or you can get in touch with me on Facebook or Tumblr. Links will be in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!